It began with a press conference that had all of D.C. buzzing. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, dressed in a navy suit sharp enough to slice through spin, stood at a podium in front of the federal courthouse in D.C., flanked by a team of attorneys and flashing cameras. The media swarmed in, sensing blood in the water. "We will no longer tolerate defamation disguised as commentary," Crockett said sternly, her voice echoing across the marble steps. Pam Bondi crossed a line, and now, she'll answer for it in court. Just days earlier, Bondi had made a televised statement implying that Crockett had misused government funds for personal leisure, citing unnamed sources and vague reports. The allegation caught fire online. But Crockett wasn't laughing. By noon that same day, her legal team had filed a civil defamation lawsuit against Bondi, demanding a public retraction and $10 million in damages. Bondi, however, didn't blink. She responded via her attorney, a man few recognized at first glance, but whose reputation would soon make headlines of its own. "Ms. Bondi stands by her statements," he declared in a formal letter to Crockett's legal team. "And we suggest Ms. Crockett prepare for discovery. We're eager to see her records." What Crockett didn't know, what no one knew yet, was what Pam Bondi's lawyer had just unearthed. By the following morning, Jasmine Crockett's legal team was already drafting a reply. But before they could file anything official, a thick envelope arrived at their office, couriered by hand, marked confidential, and signed by Bondi's attorney, Vincent Hale. Inside was a formal motion to dismiss, but attached to it was something far more explosive. Crockett's lead attorney, Dana Mills, flipped through the pages, her confident demeanor slowly eroding as her eyes scanned the exhibits. Her lips parted in disbelief. "Is this real?" one of the junior associates whispered. It was real. Hale had included a sealed affidavit, a transcript of a private text exchange, and most damning of all, an internal memo from a D.C. agency whistleblower, suggesting Crockett had in fact greenlit a questionable expenditure from her congressional discretionary fund just weeks prior. Nothing illegal. Not yet. But enough gray area to muddy her case, and her name. The timing was surgical. The implication? Crystal clear. Bondi wasn't just going to fight the lawsuit, she was going to dismantle it, piece by piece, and drag Crockett's credibility down in the process. By mid-afternoon, the press had caught wind of a development in the Crockett versus Bondi suit, but no one had the full story yet. Back in Crockett's office, silence fell over the room. Jasmine sat behind her desk, stone still, staring at the affidavit now in Dana's trembling hands. "She had this waiting," Dana muttered. "She baited us into suing." Crockett's voice was low, stunned. "She played us." The next day, Jasmine Crockett's office released a carefully worded statement to the press: "We remain confident in our position and welcome any legal scrutiny that brings the full truth to light." But behind the scenes, it was chaos. Dana Mills called an emergency strategy meeting, locking the conference room doors and silencing all phones. The atmosphere was tense, more war room than law office. "She knew we'd strike back," Dana said, pacing. "This wasn't defense. This was a trap." One of the junior lawyers spoke up. "But we can still push the defamation angle, right? Bondi made specific claims, unverified, damaging." Dana shook her head. "Not if her claims now have backing. That memo alone shifts the narrative. Even if it doesn't prove wrongdoing, it justifies her comments as opinion based on emerging reports. That could be enough for dismissal." Meanwhile, Bondi's attorney, Vincent Hale, was already doing interviews, calm, smooth, and calculated. "My client simply repeated what she had been told by credible sources. We will not be intimidated into silence." But the dagger came later that evening. Hale posted a single line on his official account, along with a redacted image of the memo: "This is just page 1. The internet exploded. Journalists began speculating about what else Bondi's team had in reserve. Hashtags like #Crockett Memo and #Page 2 coming trended for hours. News pundits who once backed Crockett began hedging, cautioning viewers to wait for the facts. Back in D.C., Jasmine stared at the headline splashed across her screen. Her voice was nearly a whisper, "She's not just playing defense. She's rewriting the script." By the end of the week, the tone in Washington had shifted. What started as a bold legal strike by Jasmine Crockett was now being painted as a political miscalculation. Opinion pieces flooded major outlets, some cautious, others brutal. Crockett swings, Bondi counters, and lands the real blow. When a lawsuit backfires, did Crockett underestimate Bondi's legal machine? In her office, Jasmine sat with crossed arms, watching a panel discussion on a muted screen. Her jaw was tight. Dana Mills stood beside her, phone in hand. "They've filed for a hearing on the motion to dismiss," Dana said. "It's moving fast. Judge Caraway set a preliminary date for next week." Jasmine didn't flinch. "Then we go in strong. We punch back." Dana hesitated. "There's more," she said quietly. "Hale just notified us. They intend to subpoena your expense records for the last 18 months. Jasmine's head snapped around. "They're not just defending," Dana continued, "they're about to turn this into a referendum on your entire tenure." It was a tactical masterstroke. If Bondi's team could blur the lines between defamation and justified criticism, and use discovery to paint Crockett as ethically compromised, even marginally, they wouldn't just win the lawsuit. They'd destroy her credibility. In the background, the pundits kept talking. One analyst was mid-sentence: "If Bondi really has more documentation, and this moves forward, Crockett might wish she'd never filed in the first place." Jasmine stared blankly at the screen. The room was silent. "They're trying to bury me with my own paperwork," she murmured. Dana didn't disagree. Monday morning brought a new blow, one Crockett never saw coming. An anonymous file drop hit several political newsrooms across D.C. Included was a PDF titled simply, Crockett Internal 21.pdf. The contents? Redacted, but suggestive. Detailed line items from congressional expense forms. Travel vouchers. Catering bills. Hotel stays that, while not illegal, raised eyebrows. Within hours, a version was on social media. Bloggers and Twitter sleuths pounced. $1 $2.74 at the Mayflower Hotel for strategic outreach. $3 $8.64 constituent development at a luxury spa conference center. That same morning, Dana Mills barged into Crockett's office holding her tablet. "It leaked," she said breathlessly. "The memo. Your expense report. Everything Hale hinted at, it's out now." Crockett's heart dropped. "That's not public record." Dana nodded. "Exactly. Which means someone handed it off. Likely a whistleblower on Bondi's side. Or worse, someone in our own office." Crockett stood up, eyes narrowed. "Call a press conference. Now. I'm not going down for a hotel receipt and a steak dinner." But Dana didn't move. "You don't understand," she said. "This lawsuit's no longer about defamation. Bondi turned it into an ethics investigation." That night, Bondi finally broke her silence in a short but chilling statement to the press: "I don't sue to silence. I speak to expose. If MS. Crockett wants to keep this fight in court, I'll happily bring flashlights." The message was unmistakable: keep pushing, and more would come. Back in her townhouse, Jasmine stared at her reflection in the dark window. The skyline shimmered faintly behind her. Her phone buzzed non-stop. She whispered to herself, "What the hell did I start?" The morning after the leak, Jasmine Crockett arrived at Capitol Hill with her game face on, but her usual fire was dimmed. Inside her office, Dana and the rest of the legal team huddled over a whiteboard filled with timelines, headlines, and potential fallout scenarios. Every hour brought new press inquiries, each more aggressive than the last. Then came a call from the House Ethics Committee. Not a hearing, yet. But an official inquiry notice. Preliminary evaluation of public financial concerns, the letter read. Polite. Surgical. Dangerous. Crockett stared at the page in silence. This isn't just about Bondi anymore, Dana said. This is the hill they want you to die on. But then, something unexpected. A private message arrived from a political consultant close to Bondi's circle. Anonymous, encrypted, and short, your next move determines if she buries you or spares you. Don't bluff. Jasmine scoffed, tossing the phone aside. But Dana looked more cautious. He's not wrong. You started this legally. If we don't de-escalate, Bondi will bleed you dry. Publicly. For the first time, Jasmine hesitated. She had come out swinging, confident, defiant. But now. The cameras were turned. The narrative had flipped. Her reputation wasn't under fire, it was under siege. Still, retreating felt like losing. Then Dana said it, we could file for voluntary dismissal. Quiet. Strategic. It lets you reset. You live to fight another battle, on your terms. Jasmine's fingers tapped the desk. You want me to back down? No, Dana replied. I want you to survive. Crockett leaned back, eyes burning but calculating. Maybe this wasn't about winning a lawsuit anymore. Maybe it was about surviving a war she never saw coming. The next morning, before any decision was finalized, an unexpected envelope arrived at Crockett's office, hand-delivered, again, by a sharply dressed courier. Inside, a single-page letter from Vincent Hale, Bondi's attorney. Formal. Neutral. Almost cold. In the interest of avoiding protracted litigation and the unnecessary entanglement of congressional oversight, my client is willing to forego counterclaims, provided Congresswoman Crockett agrees to a voluntary dismissal with prejudice and issues a mutual non-disparagement statement. Dana read it twice, then handed it to Jasmine without a word. Crockett scanned it slowly, her face unreadable. Then she spoke flatly, she's offering me a way out. Dana nodded. But on her terms. No apology, no retraction. Just silence, and a closed door. The implications were clear. Crockett could make this all go away. The ethics inquiry would likely stall. The press frenzy would die. Her seat, her reputation, even her re-election, might be salvageable. But it would mean walking away. Jasmine clenched the letter. She's daring me to flinch. Dana looked her square in the eyes. She already won the first round. You need to decide if you want to fight the second, or survive it. Crockett walked to the window and stared out over the Capitol. Everything in her rebelled against backing down. But for the first time in her political life, the cost wasn't measured in votes, it was measured in permanent damage. She closed her eyes. Call her office, she said finally. Dana blinked. What should I say? Jasmine turned, her voice low but firm. Tell them we'll talk. Off the record. The meeting was set for 7:30 p.m. No cameras. No press. No official records. Just two women, one lawsuit, one unspoken war, and the quiet room of a private Georgetown law firm. Jasmine Crockett arrived first. No entourage. No aide. Just a single folder tucked under her arm and a storm behind her eyes. Pam Bondi entered minutes later, perfectly composed. Her expression unreadable, but her steps deliberate. They didn't shake hands. Vincent Hale sat at the edge of the room, silent, observing. Dana Mills was beside Jasmine, but said nothing. The first words came from Bondi, smooth as glass. So, this is where the storm breaks? Jasmine leaned forward. You played this like a chess match. And I walked into it like a brawl. Bondi didn't smile, but there was a flicker of something, respect, maybe. Or amusement. I didn't set the board, Jasmine, Bondi said. You filed first. You made it public. I simply played my position. Dana slid the mutual non-disparagement draft across the table. Crockett stared at it for a long time. You built this trap months ago, she said. You had the memo. The whistleblower. You waited for me to make the first move. Bondi finally nodded. I knew you would. You're loud. Proud. Impulsive. And you're calculating. Bondi replied, it's why I win. A long silence followed. Then Jasmine opened her folder and pulled out something no one expected, her own memo. A counterdocument. A redacted but legally damning trail implicating one of Bondi's longtime political allies in a shady lobbying deal. Bondi's smile faded slightly. Jasmine didn't raise her voice. She just pushed the folder forward. I may have walked into your trap, she said quietly. But I didn't come empty-handed. Bondi looked down at the folder, then up at Jasmine. You held this back. I'm not stupid, Crockett replied. I just prefer my hits land when the room is small and the doors closed. Bondi's eyes narrowed, calculating. Now the board had 2 queens. The room went still. Not tense, surgical. Vincent Hale leaned forward to inspect the document Jasmine Crockett had placed on the table. It wasn't thick. Just a few pages. But its contents were potent enough to shift the balance. It detailed a lobbying firm, Common Core Strategies, with deep ties to Bondi's inner circle. One of their senior partners had allegedly funneled dark money into a state initiative Bondi had publicly supported. Jasmine's team had uncovered the link months ago, but held it back. Until now. Bondi closed the folder gently, not looking away from Jasmine. I suppose this is your version of insurance. No, Jasmine said. It's my version of a mirror. Vincent spoke at last, calm but firm. This document alone doesn't prove criminality. Dana shot back, maybe not in court. But in the headlines? It's enough to light a fire under 3 watchdog groups and every Hill journalist within 20 miles. Bondi exhaled slowly, as if weighing the edge of a sword. You waited for the right moment, she murmured. Jasmine nodded. Just like you did. They weren't enemies now, they were equals in opposition. Bondi understood what was really on the table. This wasn't just a lawsuit anymore. It was reputation for reputation. Career for career. Bondi looked to Hale, then back to Jasmine. We both walk. Quietly. This doesn't leak. Neither does yours. Jasmine nodded once. Mutual destruction helps no one. Dana added carefully, we'll issue a joint statement, no further legal action. No comment. Clean break. Bondi thought for a beat, then reached out, not to shake hands, but to pull the unsigned agreement toward her. As she slid it across, she met Jasmine's gaze. Next time, she said, don't throw the first punch unless you're ready for the last round. Crockett leaned back and smiled faintly. Oh, I'm always ready. I just learned how to wait. By dawn the next day, Washington insiders began whispering, the lawsuit was gone. No courtroom fireworks. No dramatic apology. No televised showdown. Just a brief, sterile joint statement issued to the press, both parties have agreed to withdraw all legal actions. No further statements will be made at this time. For the media, it was anticlimactic. For political junkies, it was a signal. No one wins that quietly unless there's more beneath the surface. Cable anchors speculated all day. Was Crockett bluffing? Did Bondi blink? Why did both women suddenly go quiet? But those closest to the storm knew the truth, it wasn't silence out of surrender, it was silence out of strategy. Inside Crockett's office, Dana watched as Jasmine signed off on the final documentation. Her hands were steady. Her voice, sharp. That's done, Jasmine said. We'll leak nothing. We move forward. Dana nodded. You didn't lose. You contained the damage. Jasmine looked up. No. I adapted. That's different. Elsewhere in Florida, Pam Bondi poured herself a drink at sunset, flipping through a local newspaper that barely mentioned the case. No gloating. No victory speech. Just calm. She closed the paper and muttered, "Smart girl." Back in D.C., Crockett returned to the Capitol with a fresh sense of restraint and a deeper appreciation for what real power looked like, not loud, not flashy. But quiet. Surgical. Ready. She'd swung. She'd been countered. And yet, she stood. And in the world of politics, that was survival. Though the lawsuit was dead on paper, in Washington, stories never truly die, they metastasize. 2 weeks after the agreement, subtle tremors began. An op-ed in the Hill praised Crockett for her measured resolve under intense pressure. A second article, curiously sourced and unsigned, questioned Bondi's ties to certain Florida PACs, echoes of the lobbying firm Jasmine had used as leverage. No names were dropped. No documents leaked. But the shadows had started moving. Dana entered Jasmine's office holding a fresh manila folder. "We've been getting quiet feelers," she said. "Senators' aides. Journalists. People asking if you're willing to talk, off the record." Crockett shook her head. "No leaks." "We agreed." Dana raised an eyebrow. "And you've kept your end." But D.C. has a funny way of dragging unfinished stories out by their ankles. Meanwhile, Bondi's camp remained stone silent. Vincent Hale gave a single interview where he simply said, "We chose resolution. Others chose speculation." But insiders knew, Bondi's armor wasn't dented, it was watched. Jasmine, on the other hand, saw a strange twist in her own fortune. Her approval ratings ticked upward, modestly, but noticeably. Supporters admired how she stood her ground against a seasoned legal pitbull like Bondi. Younger voters started calling her the quiet fighter. Even behind closed doors, fellow lawmakers treated her with new respect. She wasn't just another freshman voice anymore, she was someone who'd entered the ring with fire and walked out intact. One night, Dana said it plainly, "You didn't just survive, Jasmine. You evolved." Jasmine looked out the window, Capitol lights glowing across the river. "Good," she said. "Because next time, no lawsuits. Just strategy." Months passed. The lawsuit between Jasmine Crockett and Pam Bondi faded from headlines, eclipsed by newer scandals and shifting elections. But inside the Capitol and across political circles, the memory of it remained, a silent warning whispered between staffers and strategists alike, don't underestimate the ones who retreat strategically. Jasmine Crockett had emerged changed, not silenced, not weakened, but refined. Her floor speeches sharpened. Her interviews grew more precise. She no longer chased headlines, she calibrated them. One evening, after a long committee session, Dana found her on the balcony outside her office. "You know," Dana said quietly, "if you'd won that lawsuit outright, people might have written it off as a lucky hit." Jasmine smirked. "But walking away with my credibility intact? That made them nervous." Dana nodded. "Exactly. Bondi tried to end you. You turned it into a masterclass." Down in Florida, Bondi had gone radio silent on the matter. Her team still won battles, but she had become more cautious, more careful in her public attacks. She'd seen what happened when a rising name refused to play the game the way she expected. And as elections neared, whispers resurfaced. Rumors that Crockett was being eyed for a committee leadership role. That she had the strategic mind, and the scars, to handle the big stage. Back in her office, Jasmine turned off the lights and stood alone for a moment, letting the dark settle around her. The lawsuit hadn't ended with a bang. But it had taught her something more valuable than victory, Sometimes, the real win isn't about beating your enemy, it's about making sure they never try you again.